Hi everyone, welcome to the IoTaudit Introductory Module 2. Here we'll be talking about IoT target outcome, baselining, and expectations. Let's get started. In Module 1, we introduced the IoTaudit tool suite and the framework that's used by senior leaders to plan their IoT initiatives around the world. This is an important module. If you haven't watched that yet, please go back and watch this first because it will give you context for this session. Because this module is going to provide a more detailed discussion on the first two phases of the IoT audit, the target outcome and baseline and expectations. You will learn how to create and document your IoT deployment target outcome. We're going to cover how to baseline your IoT current state and backtrack from your target outcome to today. Then we'll collect and assess the expectations of all the stakeholders involved in your IoT project, both internal and external. So you'll recall the IoT Audit Solution Framework from Module 1. Here we see we're going to focus on the first two modules, the target outcome, which is your purpose, and your baseline and expectations phase. We'll cover strategy, metrics, tests, implementation, and optimization in Module 3. Let's do a little deeper dive. Now you'll also recall this chart from Module 1, where we have a little more detailed information on the target outcome. We're going to look at the objectives and expectations of your IoT deployment. We're going to establish the scope, limits, and the contacts. We're going to understand the timeline schedule, and we're going to definitely dive in and make sure we understand the goals and the metrics of the desired target outcome. Then in the baseline and expectations, we're going to do our first order assessment of our situation. We're going to do external research and audit prep. We're going to interview and have discussions with the key stakeholders. We're going to look at data acquisition and your business processes. And then we're going to assess your business units, your markets, and other data points that are going to drive your business optimization. At this point, we're going to do a go, no-go on the IoT suitability for your organization. So here's the expectations of what we want to get out of Module 2. We're going to create your IoT target outcome using your corporate key performance indicators, or KPIs. We're going to understand how important a detailed written target outcome is to your IoT deployment success. We're going to baseline your corporate IoT situation using the IoT Audit Maturity Toolset. We're going to identify and negotiate all IoT stakeholder expectations. And we're going to understand how to use the data from the baseline and expectation stages to create your IoT strategy map and task project plan. Now I want to take just a minute and talk about the high-level philosophy behind the IoT audit. This simple diagram shows the structure of how we're looking at putting together an IoT deployment. The first, the target outcome, is your purpose. It is really essentially the why. And few organizations know why they do what they do. The why is not about making money. It's a result. It's the purpose. It's your cause. It's your very reason your organization, in this case, your IoT deployment project, exists. So we're going to focus on the target outcome on the why. And then later on, the strategy map is essentially your process or your how. Now, some organizations know how they do things, the processes that make them special or set them apart from the competition. And then the last part is the tasks or the products. Now, every organization on the planet knows exactly what they do, and these are the products they sell and the services they offer. And it's very easy to fall into, when you're looking at IoT deployment, is we're just going to grab some sensors, we're going to try and connect it to the cloud and look at some of the resulting data. In this case, we need to really work from the inside out. And this is really the focus of the IoT audit. Now, the quote on this page is adapted from Napoleon Hill, and it's really essential around the target outcome, because what your mind conceives and your team believes, your business achieves. Now, I don't want to get all touchy-feely here, but this is a fundamental philosophy and a way of doing business that'll really help your IoT deployment be successful. You have to conceive exactly of what you're going to do, because then you're going to tell your team and they're going to buy in and they're going to believe in that vision, that target outcome, and really work to support it and make it happen. And if everybody's pulling together, you'll be able to achieve a successful IoT deployment outcome. So we're really going to focus on making sure your IoT deployment plan is well conceived so that your team can really embrace it and you'll be successful down the road. Here we introduce the target outcome. This is the tool you're going to use to conceive your IoT target outcome, and it's the achievement of what you want to tangibly realize. So your IoT target outcome is going to be the successful attainment of your business performance optimization metrics using an Internet of Things deployment. Now, the target outcome is not a virtual or soft, it's not a goal, it's not a desire, nor a dream. It's a concrete story that you can describe in vivid detail. Now, you absolutely must be able to visualize and describe all the details of your target outcome. What does it look like, feel like, even sound like? What we're going to ask you to do is try to diagram, even at this point, your IoT implementation. What do your leaders say? What do your customers say? What do your competitors might say? Visualize articles in the press. So there's lots of ways to visualize your target outcome. Then you're going to write it down in very great detail. Writing down the target outcome gives you a feeling of commitment and is incredibly useful when interacting with everyone around you. The key is the better you can articulate your target outcome to others, the more successful your IoT deployment will be. So this diagram shows a breakout of the various IoT key focus areas that we're going to take a look at in the subsequent slides. It ranges around clockwise the pain points, new revenues, customers, products, quality, operations, and financial. So these are many of the key areas where IoT deployments are pointed towards key performance indicators and business optimization. Let's look at them in turn. Now, one of the obvious first areas to look at IoT deployment opportunities are in the pain points you're already having. You may be grappling with issues in areas such as customer responsiveness, supply chain logistics, product quality, operational efficiencies, and other areas where you have some existing corporate key performance indicators that aren't meeting targets. These are excellent starting points for the purpose of your IoT. If you're strategizing and looking at where IoT might have the greatest impact in your business, new revenues is a key area to look at. Here you'll be looking at how you might be able to leverage IoT implementations in new products, introduce new services, open up or service new geographies, access new customers, and lastly, and most importantly, new business models. This is a key area for IoT, as bringing these capabilities in your organization may drive brand new ways to make money. Another excellent area for IoT deployment is your customers. Here you'll be looking to increase your sales per customer, increase their satisfaction, or increase their loyalty, which of course are two different things, and potentially increase customer referrals. You want to leverage your IoT to improve customer experience. You can introduce new products or features for greater wallet share. You can enhance the value chain to increase customer satisfaction, provide compelling value to ensure repeat purchases, and enable new ways for customers to refer you to other new customers. Another area for your IoT purpose is potentially around your products. You can improve the competitiveness of your products, improve your existing products, or improve services, introduce new product features and benefits that can be introduced through adding IoT capabilities. You might want to consider how can existing product performance be improved by adding new sensors and control devices and data analysis. You can also create new services by collecting IoT infrastructure data and providing alarming, monitoring, and predictive analysis. There's lots of opportunities in the product area. Another excellent area for your IoT purposes is in your quality arena, both in your products and regulatory compliance. Here you're looking to increase your quality metrics, potentially improve the quality processes, or comply with regulatory or environmental regulations. So what you want to do is examine your company's current quality KPI metrics. From the Pareto analysis, what are the top 3 reasons that drive quality defects? These are excellent areas that you can attack because you can examine what infrastructure data is currently not available would positively impact your top 3 reasons, you can place sensors at these infrastructure points to collect this data to drive improvement. Also, where are the quality processes bottlenecks and blind spots? An excellent place for IoT deployment. And lastly, regulatory compliance. Monitoring your situation will allow you to comply with laws, rules, and regulations. And of course, there's always new ones coming out that you'll have to support. Operations is one of the key areas for IoT deployment. There's so many places that IoT can be leveraged to improve business performance in many areas. And you see in the breakout in the chart, we're looking at facilities around the security, equipment, and space utilization. We're looking at increasing productivity and efficiency. We're looking at how do we increase collaboration and share data across divisions. We're going to leverage new business intelligence and operational intelligence. We're going to get better visibility across the entire operations. And of course, the manufacturing process area is key. How do we reduce costs? How do we improve our key performance indicators and eliminate waste? And also, supply chain optimization is a wonderful area for IoT because not only can you impact your performance, but you can help your supply partners improve their business performance as well. Now, in the financial area, IoT isn't typically deployed in a finance department, but a properly used IoT deployment can drive the leading metrics, which in turn will improve the key financial metrics, which are often lagging. In other words, they roll up over a quarter or a year. The intent is to deploy IoT solutions so that you can increase your margins, increase your return on working capital, be more efficient with your budgets, increase your revenue growth and your profitability, which should result in an increase in your EBITDA. And lastly, increase shareholder value since your business performance has been optimized. So the takeaway here is looking towards an IoT deployment that will help drive your financial metrics. So this slide, just to kind of highlight the leading and lagging metrics and how they roll up into key performance indicators. Again, lagging metrics, they're end result metrics. They're totals or statistics for the processes that occurred. Examples are yearly sales totals, product quality metrics, or customer satisfaction. Now, leading metrics, these are the metrics that are more real time, and they're the causes, or they basically predict the outcome of a lagging metric result. So, for instance, for yearly sales totals, leads generated is a leading metric. For product quality, the yield at each product manufacturing step. Or in the case of customer satisfaction, a leading metric would be customer returns, or website feedback, or your sales team feedback. So the key here to optimize the impact of your IoT deployment is to focus on leading metrics. With the idea of leading metrics in mind, we're now going to document your IoT target outcome. And it takes the shape of the following statement. We will improve or create, insert an area, from insert a certain amount, it might be a percent, a dollar, or some amount, to another number, which is improved, by insert a date. So here's some examples of some good target outcomes that you're going to apply IoT solutions to. First is ship all customer orders from 90% to 99% on time by December 31st. Or improve weekly machine uptime 72% to 97% in 12 months. Or increase in-store per customer spend from $53 to $68 by 6/1. Now, to accomplish this, the rest of the target outcome is we were going to generate new infrastructure data at specific points that will be collected, analyzed, and utilized to drive actions that realize my target outcome success. And so now the really important step again is you must document your target outcome in detail for your team, your company, your customers, potentially supply chain partners, and other stakeholders. Now note, you're not going to have all the details yet, and that comes next. So now that you've documented your target outcome, the next step is to baseline where you are today against your target outcome. So what are your current KPI values that are involved in your target outcome, and what is the gap with that target outcome? And then you identify all the areas that affect your key performance indicators and your target outcome. These areas can be very wide-ranging, as we'll see on the next slide. So you start with today and identify the actions and steps you'll need to take to get to your target outcome, essentially today to your target outcome. Then we're going to use the backtrack technique to go from the target outcome to today. This is particularly effective, and we'll see how this is done in a few slides. So now as we're baselining our situation to reach our target outcome, there's quite a few areas that we need to take a look at in the baseline process. And of course, this is a fairly busy diagram, but we're going to go through each of these major components in the subsequent slides. So what you want to do is identify, for instance, the key market drivers that are affecting your company, and what are competitors doing in regards to the key performance indicators that you're wrapped into your target outcome. You identify the organizational status and the impact of each organization on your target outcome. You're going to look at KPI indicators in all organizations, sort of a balanced scorecard approach from Kaplan and Norton. We're going to look at that in detail in a slide or two. Also identify the processes involved in your target outcome. You're going to identify security and privacy issues. And lastly, you're going to identify the key data sources required to get the data so it's actionable to reach your target outcome. So now we're going to break down some of our baseline areas. The first is market drivers. The first area here listed is your focus application. There are lots of areas that you can apply IoT deployments to, but this one just focuses on your specific areas. You're going to take a look at customer requirements. You're going to look at what are the competitors doing. You're going to consider what is the state of the art in terms of industry best practices. You're going to understand the regulations that surround your target outcome from both government and industry. You look at operating costs and whether or not you can leverage some of your IoT deployment to improve your position as a low-cost leader. Understand the technology trends, not only for Internet of Things, but also for technology trends that are driving your business. Look at the economic trends. Is it the right time for you to be spending this kind of money? Or is it really important that you do to be able to get a competitive advantage in terms of the market dynamics? And lastly, looking at customer demand and your customer requirements. This diagram here shows many of the industries that can utilize IoT. I'm not going to spend a great deal of time drilling down on these in these introductory modules. We have a great deal of information in the IoTaudit course about these applications. But I think it's instructive to consider them in your case because you might find something applicable to your business and your target outcome, whether that's in process control, retail and hospitality, fleet monitoring, energy and utilities, transportation, asset tracking, health and fitness, tank monitoring, agriculture, use-based insurance, home automation, building controls and security, environment monitoring, and infrastructure management. Also a lot of people ask us about these diagrams. In the IoTaudit course, I'll show you exactly the tools to be able to access and use all of these diagrams we show throughout the introductory modules. Then there are the IoT applications that apply to all industries. The categories such as predictive maintenance, loss prevention, asset utilization, inventory tracking, disaster planning and recovery, downtime and minimization. You might want to stop the presentation, maybe look at these in detail. To continue the list, you've got energy usage and the optimization of energy use, device performance effectiveness, network performance management, capacity utilization and capacity planning, demand forecasting, pricing optimization, yield management, and load balancing optimization. So again, go through these lists and see how they might apply back into your particular target outcome, as all of these are IoT implementations being done today around these various applications. Next, you're going to baseline your organization. You're going to look at who are the key target outcome owners and contributors. For instance, many organizations get involved in an IoT deployment, either directly or they're affected by it. This includes IT, sales and marketing, service and support, admin and finance, manufacturing, product development, and operations. Part of the question then are what are the KPIs that these groups are using, whether they're using a balanced scorecard or some other sorts of key indicators. What about your culture? Is it accepting to change? Is it a learning organization? Are there barriers to change in terms of not only culture but potentially organization? What kind of impact might an IoT deployment have on whether your operation is a union or non-union organization? Those things you should consider. And lastly, what is your skill and capability around this area? What kind of skills do you have in the hardware or firmware engineering areas, in networking, middleware, big data analysis? Who's going to install, configure, and support all your IoT infrastructure, and what organizational changes might be implied? These are all things you need to take into consideration if you hope to be successful with your IoT deployment. Next up is baselining your processes. Again, what are some of the key performance indicators that are used in your business? What are the efficiency metrics in place? What's some of the data around your revenue and margins, along with your quality metrics? All these are very important indicators. Many of them are lagging. Remember we talked earlier about lagging metrics and leading metrics. But what you need to do is get a baseline of all these different indicators so you can fold that in to your IoT target outcome analysis. Then you'll need some time baselining your security and privacy issues. You have to take a look at all your product security requirements. You're definitely going to have to understand all of your network security capabilities, processes, protocols, and security requirements. You're going to identify the physical security capabilities and processes in your organization, those that affect your target outcome, as well as specific legal requirements such as HIPAA data, data privacy, or other areas where information must be protected. Now, for purposes of IoT, baselining your data is absolutely critical, because essentially what you're doing with your Internet of Things deployment is creating data where it doesn't exist today, oftentimes to be combined with other data in your organization. So what you need to do is document where data currently originates and how it is currently documented. You're going to identify all current infrastructure data sources that exist. You're also going to identify relevant business intelligence data related to your target outcome. And you're going to identify concurrent corporate data initiatives to your target outcome. So if you look at the diagram there, you see the key areas are around collection methods. There's a lot of manual logging and paper trails of data. There's electronic means and data entry. There is some automatic capture. And of course, there's uncaptured information. The data that comes from the infrastructure might come from sensors that are already existing in your infrastructure, data logging, your ERP system, your CRM system, supply chain data, asset and logistical data, climate data, environmental data, facility data. You might have a SCADA system in place. There's obviously a great amount of data generated there along with system logs. You want to understand the current business intelligence data that applies to your target outcome area, and also other current corporate strategic data that would fold in. You're going to spend a great deal of time in your baseline here really understanding the data sources so you can really spend your money wisely in implementing an effective IoT deployment. Now, while we're on the issue of data, it's a very important piece of IoT, and we spend a complete module in the IoT audit course on data. But there's a couple of concepts here I wanted to highlight. First, you're going to need to use a systematic process to extract useful knowledge from the data to provide solutions for your target outcome. Also, in the large mass of IoT data that you're going to generate, software analysis tools are going to be used to find attributes of key performance indicator components. Now, it's important to note if you look too hard at a data set, you'll find something, but it might not generalize beyond that particular data set. Therefore, you'll often bring in related data sets, and this is where the baselining effort around your other data is so important, because you're going to bring that data in along with your IoT data. And lastly, Formulating your IoT data mining solutions and analyzing results must be done in the context of how they'll be used to reach your target outcome. Now, there are many areas where infrastructure data exists in your organization today, and it's vitally important for business optimization to take this data and combine it with the new data created from your IoT network, because infrastructure data is one of the fastest growing, most complex, and valuable areas of big data. Records of user transactions, customer behavior, device behavior, process status, environmental conditions, security threats, and fraudulent activity are just examples of the many areas where you have infrastructure data. If you take a few minutes and look at this list, you can probably see that whether it's in your IT logs, your operational process logs, other types of data stores, that you have a great deal of information that you can bring in and leverage in your IoT deployment data analysis. So as part of your data baselining activities, you're also going to want to look at operational intelligence. Remember, you're going to use your IoT software applications to transform the infrastructure data into real-time operational intelligence. And in order of increasing sophistication, this operational intelligence is reporting of what happened. You're going to analyze why did it happen, monitor what's happening now in real time, forecast what might happen. Even more sophisticated is predict what is likely to happen, and then lastly, prescribe what action should be taken. You're going to do all of this then to optimize, which is take the actions to reach your target outcome by using this operational intelligence. This is a diagrammatic view of the previous slide. We really like this slide and use it a lot with our customers because you can see it shows the blocks with the reporting, analysis, monitoring, forecasting, predicting, and prescriptive blocks mapped out on the y-axis complexity low to high and the business value on the x-axis low to high. And you can see reporting, for instance, has low complexity and low business value, and as you move up the value chain, you move from descriptive statistics into around forecasting using regression analysis to derive the answers to quantity questions. Then as you move up into predictive analysis, you'll use cluster analysis techniques to answer behavioral questions. And then lastly, you use simulation modeling to model optimal outcome questions. We spend a great deal more time in the IoT audit course on this, but please take a look at it and digest it. Now I'd like to introduce a very important baselining technique called backtracking. It's very difficult to start from today's status and identify all the actions required to realize your IoT target outcome. So with backtracking, you begin by starting with your target outcome and work backwards to today. You begin with the target outcome and then use why, how, and what questioning technique to brainstorm the pathway from your target outcome to today. Now, along the way, you may intersect your today to target outcome analysis, but it's very likely you'll find new paths, and a lot of times they won't intersect. So you'll find things you didn't think about. So this technique is fully described in the IoT audit course. So to summarize the baseline and backtracking process, it's incredibly important to document it as the foundation for your strategy map. Done correctly, the baseline exercise identifies the process and steps you'll need to take to get from today to your IoT target outcome. The links to get from today to the target outcome form the basis for your strategic map. These interrelated links are turned into the key tasks in your IoT project plan, and we're going to lay this all out for you in the IoT Audit Introductory Video 3. The next phase is expectations. And it's incredibly important for your IoT project, as this step is often the root cause of your IoT project failure. It's because all the IoT stakeholders need to be identified, interviewed, intrigued, and invested. So what you're going to do is you're going to identify all those that are involved in your project, and you're going to ask open-ended and cause and effect questions about your proposed IoT project and your target outcome, and then listen carefully to their answers. Because you're going to identify who is positively and in some cases negatively impacted by the IoT project. Then you're going to determine how to intrigue all your stakeholders by addressing their personal hot buttons and their issues. And lastly, you need to get all your stakeholders invested in your IoT success. These discussions are often hard to have, they're often personal, but they're very important because you need to get everyone on board if you're going to succeed with your IoT deployment. This slide gives some examples of the various stakeholders in your IoT project that you're going to interview and talk about their expectations. Certainly, you may be the target outcome owner, but whoever is the owner of the target outcome has a lot invested in this. Also, the core project team members, extended team members. You may have some internal detractors. Your senior executives are going to be involved. You have to understand their expectations, potentially even board of directors and shareholders. Your customers may well have a stake in this. Your competitors, you should understand what their response might be to your success with your IoT deployment. You need to have expectations around the investment, the staff resources, and the timeline. So you can see off to the right the process steps here is you're going to collect and document the expectations from all these involved parties. You're going to understand the synergies and the conflicts. You're going to identify investment fund sourcing and the amounts. You're going to identify your staffing resource requirements, especially around new skills required and the number of resources required. And lastly, you're going to have to understand the timeline from the perspective of the project team versus management versus others to make sure you can get done what you need to get done in the time frame expected. Here's a little deeper dive on the IoT stakeholder, on all the folks you need to talk to around their expectations. I'm not going to go through this list in detail, but you see you have some work to do here to make sure you understand the landscape of people's expectations. Because if you don't go out and really understand where everybody's at, you may find a lot of pitfalls along the way. And as I mentioned earlier, missing expectations, whether they're missed or misunderstood, is often the root cause of an IoT project failure. Now that you've talked to everyone and had a good two-way discussion on everyone's expectations around the target outcome, you need to have a solid agreement on each of the parties' understanding. This agreement can take various forms. It may just be a verbal agreement, an email agreement, a memorandum of understanding, or potentially a written legal contract, depending on the party. Do you need a written trail? Absolutely. There may be legally binding terms. The agreement might have financial terms and implications. But more importantly, things in writing imply commitment. So get everything you can in writing, because as I like to say, get it in writing to avoid the fighting. Well, we've reached the end of Module 2, and I thank you for hanging in there and completing this module all the way to the end. We covered a lot of interesting topics, and I hope you found a lot of value. I'd like to talk a little bit about what to do next. I'd like you to review the presentation and video again with the mindset of what is my target outcome? And then I'd like you to review this IoT target outcome written statement from Module 1 compared to what you learned in Module 2. Obviously, you have a lot more information from your baselining process that you'll be able to use with your target outcome. Then I'd like you to enter your name and email in the form here and indicate you want to receive IoT Audit video number 3, where we'll cover the rest of the IoT Audit framework. I'd also love it if you could leave a comment below on what frustrates me the most about planning my IoT implementation. We'd love to get the feedback from those trying to really put together their IoT plans, and I'd really love to understand what frustrates you about that process. And lastly, watch IoT Audit Video 3, IoT Strategy Maps, Task Plans, and Techniques for Success, and I look forward to seeing you in that video. Thanks.